make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and click on the description below so that you are on our email list. Why? Because, well, YouTube has been demonetizing the great Eldersky. I don't know why. Maybe I said too many things about the COVID lockdown. Maybe I said too many things about the phoniness between characterizing Donald Trump as pushing the big lie about 2020 while giving Hillary a complete and total pass, even though she's been pushing the big lie about 2016. Maybe we've said too many things about that. I don't know. All I know is that we have now been once again demonetized by YouTube. Which brings up one more thing. We've got a donate button. Hit that donate button. Make a contribution as substantial as you can to Epoch Times and to our show to keep us going, because as you know, we've got a country to save. This brings us to a racist ad that aired in Iowa. I've been to Iowa a few times the last few weeks because I'm thinking about maybe doing something in 2024. I will keep you posted. And I've met with the governor of Iowa. Her name is Kim Reynolds. Extremely popular. Last I checked, she's leading her opponent in her effort for re-election by 17 points. And how's she doing as a governor? Well, there is a think tank called the Cato Institute. It's a libertarian think tank. I consider myself to be a small L libertarian. And based on taxes and regulation and spending, they give grades A through F to governors every 2 years. Well, the last report was 2020. And guess which was one of 4 governors who got an A rating? Governor Kim Reynolds. Only 4 governors out of 50 got an A. She was one of them. That's how bad a job she has been doing. And I say bad, I mean that sarcastically in quotes. So she put out an ad attacking her political opponent. And it was, in my opinion, standard ad, nothing inflammatory, didn't drop any F-bomb. Watch the ad yourself.
And defunding the police has to happen.
Watching the news, you wonder, has the rest of the country lost its mind? Attacks on police, open borders, paying people not to work. Aren't you glad you live in Iowa?
Governor Kim Reynolds.
Here we still have common sense. We kept businesses open and kids in school. We cut taxes and support our police. Because in Iowa, America still works.
What's the problem? It opens up with Cori Bush saying we still need to defund the police. You had Kamala Harris saying we need to reimagine the police, and Joe Biden said we can redirect funds away from the police and do it for other kinds of programs. So this is a staple of the Democratic Party, attacking the police, and as a result, the governor of Iowa uses this in the ad. And then you saw a little shot of riots in the streets, and she proceeds to then talk about the harmful economic policies of the Biden administration. Standard stuff, right? Au contraire, mon frere, the chair of the Iowa Democratic Party, his name is Ross Wilburn, happens to be black. The only reason I mention that is because here's what he tweeted when the ad ran. We need to call this what it is, a cheap, racist, and dangerous stunt using harmful stereotypes to score political points. Can I watch the ad one more time, please?
And defunding the police has to happen.
Watching the news, you wonder.
I guess the harmful stereotype is Representative Cori Bush saying defund the police has to happen. By the way, since Cori Bush has been talking about defund the police, guess who has spent close to $400,000 in private security for somebody who argues we need to defund the police? Cori Bush. And still she claims we need to defund the police after spending over $400,000 on her own private security, but I digress. Apparently, using her in this ad is a harmful stereotype.
Has the rest of the country lost its mind? Attacks on police, open borders, paying people not to work. Aren't you glad you live in Iowa?
Governor Kim Reynolds.
Here we still have common sense. We kept businesses open and kids in school. We cut taxes and support our police. Because in Iowa, America still works.
Oh my God, what a racist ad. You saw that black man being dragged by the bumper of a pickup truck, right? You didn't see that? You didn't see the video of the cross burning on the lawn of a black family living in Davenport, Iowa? You didn't see that? You didn't see the video of a black man being lynched at a tree in Des Moines, Iowa in that ad? You didn't see that? So I tweeted to Mr. Wilburn, Dear Mr. Wilburn, when you can't defend the Democrats' record on gas prices, inflation, open borders, out comes the race card. And I pointed out I'm going to soon be in Iowa, and I'll debate you anytime, anywhere on how this ad is racist. You name the time, I said, and please, you name the place. Did Reynolds in the ad, like Hillary Clinton, characterize half of her opponent's supporters as irredeemable and consigned to a basket of deplorables? No. Did Reynolds, as did Joe Biden, denounce her opponent as extreme adherents of semi-fascism? No. It was a standard, regular ad. I will get back to you as to whether or not Mr. Wilburn will pick me up on my challenge to a debate, but I'd be delighted to debate the gentleman as to exactly how, when, where, and why that ad, that innocuous ad, not even that hard-hitting. I mean, after all, she didn't call her opponent the black face of white supremacy. Kim Reynolds is a white female and is running against a white female. So explain to me how, anyway. I'll let you know if Mr. Wilburn ever gets back to us, and maybe we can live stream the debate. Now, what do I have in my baby brown libertarian fingers? Why, a pair of MYPILLOWs, MYPILLOW slippers. And these are so soft, honestly, you can't, it's hard for me to describe how soft these things are, but imagine a brown puppy and the fur, that's what it feels like. And they come in different colors and also different styles. Just go to mypillow.com and be sure to use promo code ELDER. And what's that? I'm holding in my baby brown libertarian fingers a Giza Dream bedsheet. That's right, Giza Dream sheets made with the finest cotton in the world. Mike Lindell went all over the world to find the finest cotton. It's an area of Egypt. And it comes in different colors and, of course, different sizes, depending on whether or not you have a twin, or a queen, or a king, or a California king. But they come in all sorts of sizes. Now, again, go to mypillow.com and be sure to use promo code ELDER. Finally, what's this? An actual MyPillow. After all, they do sell pillows. Reminds me of the time I was talking to my then 90-year-old dad about a smartphone. And I had it in my hand, and my dad goes, what's that called? I said, Dad, it's a smartphone. He goes, what does it do? Well, I said, you can send and receive messages. You can send and receive text messages. It gives you directions. You can research. You can add stuff. It's got all these apps. I went over all this stuff. And at the end of it, my dad said, didn't you say it was a phone? I said, oh yeah, you can also make phone calls and get phone calls. My dad goes, oh. So MyPillow also sells pillows. So go to mypillow.com, promo code ELDER. There are over 100 products, including different sizes, different shapes of MyPillows. You can even use one that you can travel with you, which I do when I go out of town, because sometimes I don't like the hotel pillows or the motel pillows, because sometimes they save a little money. Yes, the great Eldersky is not below staying at a Motel 6. I'll leave the light on for you. MyPillow.com, promo code ELDER. Call the number on the screen. Again, MyPillow.com, promo code ELDER. We were talking earlier about the ad that the governor of Iowa, Kim Reynolds, posted, and it opened up with Cori Bush talking about wanting to defund the police. Well, you should understand something. Cori Bush has spent, as I said earlier, over $400,000 on private security to protect herself, while arguing that we ought to defund the police. And she hasn't backed down from that position. Watch this.
You've been one of the most outspoken progressives in the House, but the political wind changed, over the last couple of years. As you know, there's a pretty...
By the way, you notice how he said, you've been one of the most outspoken progressives. When does a radical left-wing person who wants to defund the police get referred to as a progressive? Just curious.
The strong backlash to things like defund the police. I know you've been getting a lot of questions about this. For example, did defund the police, did progressives go too far in hurting Democratic
Progressives.
chances in the fall with slogans like defund the police?
Did progressives go too far in the fall with slogans like defund the police? How about asking this, Don Lemon? By the way, I used to go on his show every now and then, and all of a sudden, I stopped. Maybe because the last time I was on, I pointed out that CNN tied up with Time magazine back in 1997, and they asked black teenagers and white teenagers whether or not racism was a major problem in America. And not too surprisingly, both of them said yes. But then they did this. They asked black teenagers if racism was a big problem, a small problem, or no problem in your own daily life. Again, they asked black teenagers, is racism a big problem, a small problem, or no problem in your own daily life? Guess what? 89% of black students said racism was a small problem or no problem in their own daily life. In fact, more black students than white students said, quote, failure to take advantage of available opportunities is a bigger problem than racism, end of quote. I repeat, I know I speak quickly. More black teens than white teens said failure to take advantage of available opportunities is a bigger problem than racism, end of quote. 1997, so what's that, 25 years ago? And this was a poll done by CNN and Time magazine. And when I was on the Don Lemon show, I mentioned it, and he did not want to hear it. In any case, I've not been invited back. Should I play the race card?
No, because the data has not, there is no data that actually shows that saying defund the police cost actual elections, not that one thing specifically did it.
There's no data saying defund the police has actually cost elections. That's because we haven't had very many elections since you've been saying it. But there is data showing that the attack on the police has caused crime to go up. We interviewed here on the show a guy named Isaac Kriegman, Kriegman. He used to be a data scientist with Thomson Reuters. I say used to be because he got fired. Why did he get fired? Well, because this guy who went to Harvard and has a law degree from University of Michigan dared to question whether or not calling the police systemically racist causes crime to go up. He initially supported Black Lives Matter. And as a matter of doing, data, because he's a data scientist, he did the research. He looked at cities where there was a high-profile shooting and the subsequent pullback from the police from their customary proactive policing. And he was able to document what he called excess deaths. In other words, people who were killed by bad guys who otherwise would not have been killed by bad guys had the police been doing their job. And he documented thousands of people, LA, Chicago, St. Louis, Baltimore, New Orleans, Newark, who would be alive but for the police pulling back because of people like Cori Bush yelling and screaming about how systemically racist the cops are. And let me say one more thing. There were 4 months of violent protests in our streets. Over 25 people killed, over 2,000 police officers injured, at least $2 billion worth of damage, insured damage, and even more of uninsured damage, all because of the death of George Floyd. Now, I believe that the conviction of Derek Chauvin was a just conviction, but there is no evidence, none, that whatever Derek Chauvin did to George Floyd had anything to do with George Floyd's race. And the prosecutor, who was a black man, made it very, very clear in his opening statement that the police in general were not on trial, that the Minneapolis police in general was not on trial. This specific individual named Derek Chauvin was on trial for the actions he took that resulted in the death of George Floyd. And there were 4 officers that day. 2 of them were white. One of them was Hmong, H-M-O-N-G. The other one had a father who was from Africa. I believe it was Nigeria. So it was almost a United Nations group of officers that were involved in the death of George Floyd. Zero evidence that what Derek Chauvin did had to do with racism, had to do with George Floyd's race. Yet you had 4 months of protests in the streets. Why? Because of the assertion that the police are systemically racist.
Now, there were other factors. There, if someone lost elections, when we look at, what happened 2 years ago, there were other things at play. Campaign, the way that they campaigned, how they did not.
And by the way, here she's arguing that there's no evidence that defund the police has caused anybody to lose elections. Let's assume that this is accurate. That's not the issue. The issue is who the hell in their right mind wants to defund the police? And are there unintended consequences behind defunding the police? And the answer is hell yeah. And the very people who are hurt, most of these excess deaths that Isaac Kriegman documented were black people. And Cori Bush is from St. Louis. We often talk about Chicago being the murder capital of America. It is not, because Chicago is such a big city. In absolute numbers, it's got a lot of murders. But in terms of per capita, how many people are killed per 100,000? Roughly, it's about 17 per 100,000 in Chicago. In St. Louis, it's over 50, or 3 times worse than it is in Chicago. So on a per capita basis, New Orleans, St. Louis, Baltimore, these are the murder capitals of America, and she represents St. Louis, and here she is running around talking about defund the police. It's insulting.
I use digital technology and many other things. And when we talk about right now, we have Republicans saying defund the FBI. Where are we? Where is our narrative? Let me tell you this.
And right now we have Republicans saying defund the FBI. Who? Name a name. Give me a name of a Republican House member or Republican senator who says defund the FBI. Please name names. I can name you a boatload of Democrats who've been talking about defund the police or reimagining the police, or who wants to redirect funds from the police for youth programs. By the way, think about that. Democrats are wonderful at addressing the symptoms of things they cause. Why would you need youth programs if it weren't for the complete decimation of the black family because of the welfare state? Did we need youth programs in the 40s when Tom Sowell and Walter Williams tell me one grew up in East Harlem, Tom Sowell, one grew up in Philadelphia? On hot summer nights, people would go outside and sleep on their lawns or sleep on park benches without fear they'd be mugged or robbed by their grandchildren. Why? Because there were families, fathers in the house. So you have the welfare state that incentivizes women to marry the government and men to abandon their financial moral responsibility. And you have a bunch of kids running around angry. Many of them are criminally involved in criminal activities. And then you want youth programs to deal with the symptoms of something that you've caused, which is the decimation of the nuclear intact family. But I digress.
Democrats, there were not Democrats scaling walls on January the 6th when I was at the Capitol. They weren't the ones outside scaling walls. Democrats didn't kill police officers. That came.
No police officers were killed on January 6th. She just now made another lie. The woman, Ashley Babbitt, was killed by a police officer. She was unarmed. And by the way, we didn't know the name of the police officer for months. Turned out he was a black officer, killed an unarmed white woman. Is this thing on?
At the hands of those that felt like that their candidate should be the president of the United States. So defund the police is not the issue.
Now notice Dawn Lamont said nothing at all about her assertion that the people on January 6th killed police officers. She said plural. Didn't say one word about that.
But this is my thing with that. People are more upset about defund the police than they are about the fact that black people are still killed disproportionately in this country. And
Don, you want to say something about that? Black people are killed disproportionately in this country. Black people disproportionately commit crime in this country. Of the roughly 15,000 homicides every single year in this country, almost half of them are black victims and black perps. That's why the cops are there. But the evidence shows, if anything, the police are more hesitant, more reluctant to pull the trigger on a black suspect than a white suspect. And don't go by me. Don't go by people like Heather McDonald, who's done a lot of research on this. What about people like Roland Fryer? Roland Fryer is a black Harvard economist from Baltimore who did a study. He admits he assumed that he was going to find evidence that the police were disproportionately killing black people because they were black. He was shocked. He said they were the most surprising findings of my professional career. Not only were the police disproportionately killing blacks just because they were black, he found the police were more hesitant, more reluctant to pull the trigger on a black suspect than a white suspect. In fact, more unarmed whites are killed every year than unarmed blacks. Of the roughly 1,000 people that are killed annually by the police in the last several years, according to the Washington Post database, 500 of them have been white, 250 of them have been black, the others have been others. What is your evidence, Don Lemon should be saying, to Cori Bush that the police are, quote, disproportionately killing blacks, close quote, because of race? Not only is there no evidence, it's the opposite. And one more time, you got something called the Ferguson effect, the Minneapolis effect, or the George Floyd effect. Police are pulling back, not engaging in proactive policing, resulting in, as I said earlier, excess deaths. And these excess deaths primarily are the very black people that I suspect that Don Lemon and Cori Bush care about.
And with impunity, they won't fix the problem.
With impunity? With impunity? You mean officers kill black people with impunity? Whenever there's a shooting, there's an investigation. It's usually done by local authorities, by the DOJ. Every time the police kill somebody, it is substantially investigated. So nobody's killing anybody with impunity. What crock?
Fix the problem, and I never have to say defund again.
You were talking about
Fix the problem. I never have to say defund again. So don't blame me. Blame them. Blame the white man. Blame all these white cops. This is why, by the way, nobody wants to join the police force. I'm in LA. Manpower is down. Morale is down. Officers are retiring early or resigning or transferring to other departments. Chicago, manpower down. That is why in Chicago, which is a third black, a third white, a third Hispanic, over 70% of the homicides are black. And of those homicides, roughly 75% of the cases are unsolved. I repeat, roughly 75% of these homicides of blacks are unsolved. Two reasons. Many of them are gangbangers, and there's a no snitch culture, and police manpower is down. There are fewer resources dedicated to solving these crimes. So you have all these parents, grieving parents, who've lost sons and daughters, and the culprit is not being brought to justice. And all she wants to do is talk about police officers killing black people, quote, with impunity. It is a lie, and it's getting people killed.
what happened when you said scaling the wall. You're talking about what happened with January 6th. Right. There were injured police officers, and there was a police officer that
there was
died.
A police officer that
died. Then.
Okay, so he did interject a little something. There were injured police officers, and there was a police officer that died. It turned out that police officer had a heart attack or some sort of health event, and there's no evidence whatsoever that the health event was related to what happened on January 6th. So even Don Lemon had to say something. Maybe he's trying to keep his job because there's a new CEO of CNN, and he urged people to stop using the term big lie, even though they continued using it. And reportedly, the CEO wants CNN to, quote, get back, close quote, to being fair and balanced. So maybe Don Lemon is trying to keep his job, which is why he finally said something after letting her rant all that time.
If you could do it again, would you still double down or use that slogan, defund the police?
Absolutely.
You would?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sure. Of course I would. I'm not going to back down. Got these racist cops running around here killing black people with impunity, she says. Really? Impunity? Hope you enjoyed that video. The full show is available to watch right now on Epoch TV. Just click the link in the description below to learn more, because we've got a country to save.